You're going to attack private businesses? Well, they're going to leave. Not only are they not going to expand and add other businesses, they're going to leave. They're not coming in. There goes your tax base. There goes your convenience for food and medicines and so forth. And then, of course, you're going to undermine the cops. So in Chicago, as I read this on radio and on Hannity the other night, you've got kids, you have the elderly. They're simply walking on the sidewalk and they're being shot randomly and murdered. Not because of a white dominant society, because of a collapse of the culture, a collapse of morality.
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Levin TV. First of all, it's the only Levin TV we're doing this week, so I wanted to wish you a wonderful Thanksgiving. You can see all the other Levin TVs. Boy, we're up to a zillion of them now over the last almost 6 years.
862.
862. 862. It only feels like 861. Not just kidding. I love doing this, actually. But I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you'll bring your copy of American Marxism with you. If you don't go somewhere, I hope you'll pull it off the shelf. It's a great subject to talk about with family and spread the word. Not to get into fights, but to get into conversation and explain it. So I hope you'll be able to do that. Did you realize Amazon, we have over 21,000 comments on there now with 5 stars? That's incredible. I've never had a book like that. And also, you can still get it overnight. When you watch this, you can still get it the next day. All right. You saw what happened in Wisconsin. What's happening now is the 3 people Kyle Rittenhouse shot in self-defense had long rap sheets and violent rap sheets. They were felons who were let out of prison early. The mass killer who drove his vehicle, Brooks, into a crowd of, it's so sad, people celebrating Christmas, having a parade in small-town America. He was a felon since 1999. He never served a long period of time. He was extremely violent back in a couple months back, and he got out on bail for $500. This time, again, despite the fact that it was a violent episode, he got out on $1,000 bail. And this is what's happened. This is the phony bail reform, quote unquote, that's going on all over the country. Our streets are filled with these criminals who've been caught and released by both prosecutors, court systems, and these cities that have these rules and so forth. And then when you consider the number of people coming in illegally into this country, including MS-13 and others who cannot be caught by the hundreds of thousands. They're illegal aliens, unknowns, they call them. The streets are getting very, very dangerous. Plus, you see what's happened with the weakening of the police forces, the war on the Second Amendment. That's what the Kyle Rittenhouse thing was all about, as well as self-defense. These are crazy, crazy times. And this is all under the Democrat Party. Let me explain a few things. Have you noticed the Democrat Party want ex-felons to vote? This is part of their new base. Have you also noticed that some of them have now, as they always do, pushed further into their radicalism? That they want existing prisoners who haven't done their time or are still in prison. They want them to have the right to vote. You remember Bernie Sanders proposed that? Prisoners should have the right to vote. They're still American citizens, he said. And he was asked, well, what about people on death row and rapists? He said, yes. They shouldn't have their rights taken away from them. But of course you can have your rights taken away from you. Not your unalienable rights. But we're talking about the criminal code here. This is part of the Democrat Party base. And you notice they always come down on the side of the felons against the cops. They always come down on the side of the felons against innocent people. And when it comes to inner cities, which is part of the Democrat Party base, they never talk about it. Now, I spent time on this last night on Hannity, so I won't spend a lot of time on it now. But when you look at what took place in Chicago just last weekend, over 30 people shot, 6 people murdered, including people just standing on the sidewalk, a couple of teenagers just walking down the street, people pulling up and just murdering them. It's never discussed on MSNBC or CNN. You don't know the names of these people. You don't know how they got shot, nothing. And they talk about in such racist ways about the white justice system and the white dominant society and so forth. Whites aren't even involved in this. And yet when you look at what took place in Kenosha, it was all whites. You had Rittenhouse white, the 3 felons he shot white, the judge was white, the prosecutors were white, defense counsel was white, and somehow that was racist. The greatest threat we face in this country is the Democrat Party. And by the Democrat Party, I include their surrogates in the media. Every one of these CRT promoters are Democrats. You'll notice that they never attack Biden, or if they do it very quickly, very passively, in passing and so forth, as opposed to, say, a Donald Trump. But not only Donald Trump, you see what they do to Ted Cruz, to Kevin McCarthy, and you go right down the list. Or people like me, for that matter. So let's jump into this a little bit. Right after the Rittenhouse verdict by a jury, and you have these racists. That's right, I call them racists. If they want to sue me, baby, I'm ready. And I will counterclaim. I am ready. And these major corporations like Comcast that owns NBC and MSNBC and AT&T that currently owns CNN, they're behind all this. They give a platform to these most radical reprobates who say the most awful, awful things about white people, and by white people, they mean all people, that is, people who support this society, what they say about this country. It's just disgusting. So they don't blame the felons. You know, first it was the systemically racist police, now it's the systemically racist judges and the systemically racist juries and the systemically racist justice system. Yeah, right. But the felon, no. All right, let's check it out. This is Joy Reid. Oh, and Al Sharpton. Oh, I can't wait. This is MSNBC. Puts these people on, gives them a platform. This is them the other day. Go.
This is what we expected to happen, because I think we have to keep in mind when we're watching the criminal justice system at work that it was designed to do exactly what it did today. Gun laws helped to enhance the design to allow this verdict to happen today.
Wait. The right to bear arms goes back thousands of years before this country was ever in anybody's mind. That is the right to defend yourself. Whether it was your fists, whether it was clubs and rocks, whether it was knives and swords, whether it became gunpowder and guns and whatever it is, people have a right to protect their lives, to protect their physical being, to protect their families, to protect their homes. This is instinctive. This is part of the human DNA. It's also part of the animal DNA. So it's not that the Second Amendment was created to allow this sort of white supremacist jury and so on, whatever she's got going on in her sponge for her brain. No, one doesn't follow the other. One didn't follow the other. The reason we have a Bill of Rights is to protect us, these rights that we have as human beings from government. Go ahead.
This country was built on the idea that white men had a particular kind of freedom and a particular kind of citizenship that only they have.
What does that mean? Is that what the Declaration of Independence says? You know, I think Joy Reid's parents were immigrants into this country, something like that. Maybe it was her grandparents. They came into this country, I assume, voluntarily. Her family never experienced any of this. Her family has only experienced great things in this country. She is a very wealthy woman. She gets in front of a TV camera. In this case, she's at home in front of her whatever. They go into these studios, all these hosts. They get makeup. They're treated like kings and queens. Maybe they'll have a donut or a bagel or some grapes before they go on the stage, and then they speak into the camera. They pat themselves on the head. Then they have drivers and vehicles that drive them home to their apartments or to their homes, and they're down for the revolution. But where she's not is in the streets, where she and others are lighting fuses for animosity, for jealousy, for hate, for bigotry, for racism. It's now being pushed in the media. And there was a study done by a gentleman by the name of Goldberg, who was getting a PhD at the Heritage Foundation, and it's in American Marxism. And he shows that in a period of a year or two, and he uses as examples the New York Times and the Washington Post, their references to racism, to white supremacy, and those sorts of things jumped up 1,500% in the Washington Post and 1,200% in the New York Times in the last couple of years. And this phrase, white supremacy, now is sort of an ambiguous, generic phrase. We used to know what it meant. It meant these clowns running around in white sheets, or the neo-Nazis, and that is real racists, real black haters or Hispanic haters. Now they mean the entire white majority society. And people are supposed to just sit back and take it and not comment and just shake their head. Well, you're right. What an awful society we have. She says this system was set up, this legal system, for white people. That's critical theory that preceded critical race theory. Critical race theory was built on critical theory. Critical theory goes back into the 20s or so with the Frankfurt Institute. And these were communists, these were Marxists who developed this theory, among others. That theory was exported into the United States as several of these men escaped Nazi Germany, and they're communists, including Herbert Marcuse. Critical theory, which was very popular in law schools for a period of time, that holds to the position that the justice system, which she just regurgitated, was built for the majority that controls the society. It didn't have to be white. What they meant is the dominant, stronger elements of the society, so that they could secure and keep society as they wish. Again, a Marxist ideology, because the Marxists obviously want tumult and revolution and so forth. And then it was applied to race. So it became the white dominant society. So that is what she's talking about. So you may have heard her a few weeks ago say critical race theory is a right-wing invention. It's a dog whistle. It's a bullhorn, or whatever they say. And it was developed as an intellectual movement, a scholarly movement in colleges and universities and so forth. But now she's spewing it. So the whole system was set up for the white person. Now let me ask you something. If the whole system was set up for the white person, why was Kyle Rittenhouse charged in the first place? It was set up for the white person. Well, that's a lie, and she knows it's a lie, but it doesn't matter. She's an activist. She's a Marxist. She's a racist. She's a bigot. The idea that Comcast would allow her to have a primetime show 5 days a week, 7 p.m. Eastern time, despite what they found on her social media and her lies to try and cover it up, that somebody hacked into her social media and put these horrendous things about gays and Jews and other things on there. But look, she's there. They have Sharpton as a part-time or weekend host. And so they spew these things. This is what I meant when I started the program. The Democrat Party and their media, they're destroying this country. They're destroying belief in this country, inspiration for this country, the next generation. That's why they basically supported all the violent rioting 2 summers ago and covered it up as mostly peaceful and so forth. That's why in certain cases they censor, like they did in the Rittenhouse closing statement by his lawyers while playing the prosecutor's closing statements. That's why you have people like Jaylene Rose at a basketball game on ESPN standing next to Stephen A. Smith, going on about how Blake was murdered by the cops, and this is just another example of what goes on at Kenosha. I think he thought 2 of the people who were killed were black. Well, of course, Blake wasn't murdered. Blake had just molested his ex-wife or girlfriend. She called 911. The cops come. They tell him to put up his arms. They want to take him into custody. He keeps walking around his car. You've seen the video, right? He has a knife. He reaches in his car. He gets a knife. They tase him. It doesn't do much. And then he becomes incredibly violent, and they shoot him. So he wasn't killed. The cops were not charged with a damn thing. He had attacked his ex-wife or girlfriend. And this is the problem. Another ex-felon. And so the Democrat Party and the racists and the CRT advocates will defend people like this, despite the fact that 5 minutes earlier he was abusing a woman, a black woman. And you look at this guy, Rosenbaum, who Kyle Rittenhouse shot. multiple domestic abuse convictions, multiple felonies, rape of little girls in the most horrendous way. Look at this guy, Huber, multiple domestic violence charges. You look at this other guy, what was his name? Goose Craphead, whatever his name is. I don't remember, it doesn't matter. Another one with the felony records. Violent. Nobody ever says, why were they in Kenosha that night? They had to know people were going to be rioting. So what the common thread here isn't race. The common thread here is these are criminals. These are criminals. But the Democrat Party relies on felons as part of its base. It wants to expand it. And so comes to their defense. Go.
You know, from the slave catchers on, the right to inflict violence in the name of protecting property. That's
wait. From the slave catchers on. I had no idea which, the right to protect property. Let me ask you a question. It appears to me that Joy Reid is living in a home or an apartment there. What if somebody breaks in? Do you have a right to shoot them? To protect property? I think you do, because you don't know what those people are going to do. This right to protect property is not just with the white man or the white woman. This right to protect property you'll find on every continent on the face of the earth. Whether it's majority African American, whether it's Middle Eastern, whether it's Southeast Asian, anywhere in Europe, whether it's south of the border. You break into somebody's home, you try and steal something from them. These are basic things. You know, the golden rule and these eternal truths go back well before this nation was a nation. It goes well before Columbus came to America. It was well before the Vikings came to America. The Aztecs practiced it in the south of North America, in Central and South America. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's absolutely preposterous. And when you see what happens when property is not protected, you see what's been going on in San Francisco and Chicago, how stores are being broken into and broken down, and how they're leaving, how they're being looted and losing money. You see that CVS and Walgreens are leaving cities because prosecutors say a certain amount of theft is okay by them, and the cops can't get there fast enough, or there aren't enough cops. That's what property rights are all about. And as I said the other day, what are property rights? You break your back earning a living. Maybe you spent 30, 40 years and you're retired now, or maybe you're in the middle of building a career and having a family and earning money and so forth. That's private property. That money, whether it's in a bank account, whether it's in a home, whether it's in an automobile, whether it's in investments on things that you happen to like, stamps or coin, whatever it is, that is your hard-earned labor. If somebody steals your property, they're stealing your labor, your physical and intellectual labor. They're stealing a part of you. You have a right to property in a thing, a right to property in real estate, because it's a right to property in this and this, because you've applied what limited time you have on the face of the earth to working. So people who don't work, or people who haven't spent the labor to acquire what you've acquired, they don't have a right to steal it. That's kind of involuntary servitude as well. So they're not just white people defending their property. And white people, by the way, I hate to tell, have a right to defend their property, as do black people and all other people. But listen to how she theorizes. Listen to how her perverse, unhinged mind functions. Go.
The foundational creation of the United States. So it would have been shocking. The real, as I'm glad you mentioned the Derek Chauvin verdict, that was the surprising verdict. This should have been unsurprising. But what I do think we have to think...
Should have been unsurprising? Unsurprising to her would have been if Kyle Rittenhouse was found guilty defending himself. I'm telling you, this Marxism is a horrific poison. It is so bizarre. Go ahead.
It's not only the families of the two men...
Shut up. I've had enough of you. Good God. It's really unbelievable. But racism is so deep into her mindset, into her being. She can't help it. But Comcast can help it. MSNBC can help it. It is utterly irresponsible to have her on TV 5 days a week at 7 p.m. prime, even though nobody watches it. There's kooks out there that watch this stuff. Kooks. It only takes one or two, as Scalise will tell you. It only takes one or two. Kwame Brown was a professional basketball player with the NBA with a number of teams. And I saw this, and I was very, very impressed with it. The same time Joy Reid is mouthing what she's mouthing, Kwame Brown puts out his own video, and I want you to listen to what he has to say. Go.
I just don't get it. Our focus should be on Ahmaud Arbery. It shouldn't be on Kyle Rittenhouse. That, to me, in my opinion, looked like self-defense. The courts found it as self-defense. The only bad thing is that he had to sit in jail for so long because they made something political that wasn't or shouldn't have been political. If you're going to get a boy the gun charge, give him the damn gun charge or let the boy out. I'm sure a 17-year-old walking around with a shotgun would have been a misdemeanor, which would have been probation. He could have been home eating Fruit Loops or whatever the hell he eat. But instead of that, we want to make it like, we want to tie it in. We want to tie it into something black. We want to tie it into something bigger so we can have people come out and march and get checks off of little teenagers' back. And that, to me, is corny. Trying to get money off of teenagers, trying to use the situation for a political gain, to me, that's corny. Everything ain't political, okay? It's a bunch of racist. You know what it is? A bunch of people getting paid to push this racist. That's all it is. These got no lane. They really don't got nothing to say. The only thing they get paid off of is talking about how racist it is. Them got good cars, good houses, good everything, telling you how bad it is. Don't look bad. You driving a Benz. You got down flying all over the world. You speaking engagements. You got black tires and security. How you so bad off? I'm trying to figure out. I saw goddamn Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. I saw goddamn Roland Martin. Them got black tie security. Them got black SUV. Them riding in style. They stayed at the hotel I stayed at. They was on the island. They over there living good and pimping. So how is it so bad? Tell me how to get it like you got it. Tell me how to get some of them black Escalade securities that you some bitches pulled up there with while I'm pulling up with my brother. Tell me.
I would love to meet this guy, honest to God. He's just salt of the earth, down to earth. I would love to meet this guy. Go ahead.
How to get some of that black tie security you some bitches pulled up with. Tell me how to get them earpieces and all that they had. Tell me how to ride in that nice-ass Sprinter van they had with them goddamn, it looked like Louis Vuitton seats or something. It had to have been Bentley seats in that The motherfuckers that's telling you it's so bad, boy, they riding and living and eating good, boy. God damn. It might be bad for you, but it ain't bad for these niggas. I'll tell you that right goddamn now. The niggas that's telling you it's bad, it's hell of a good for them. I just seen these niggas. These niggas rolling good, boy. I guess that's the new thing. I need to start telling you niggas how bad it is. Then I can roll like that, because I'm riding around here with a camo jacket on and shit. I ain't even get no tie, nothing. They got ties. Them got security. You can't shoot at none of them niggas. They telling you to put your gun down while they got niggas them with guns. So, man, I need to start telling you niggas it's bad. God damn. Hey, look here. Somebody emailed me about getting on the It's Bad team because I want my private security and SUVs and I want the Sprinter vans with the nice TVs that was in the that I looked in. Yeah, I want to tell it's bad. They winning over there. The who telling niggas bad, them niggas winning. Yo, I'm about to join that team. I'm just bullshit, y'all.
He said what he said, and I'm with him 100%, without all the cussing, of course. But the hypocrisy is not lost on anybody. it's not lost on anybody. Who is in Joy Reid's audience? And she's just illustrative of so many of these hosts. Who is her audience? I don't know. I don't think it's the black community. Maybe it's the white, wealthy, liberal community. Because they like to be beat up. I don't mean physically, but they like to be beat up by other people. Please, please, attack me, attack all of us. Sorry, I'm not putting up with it. The other day on radio I said, how come they never do a show? Nobody ever does a show on TV about these men from 1861 to 1865. Who were all these men and boys that fought for the North in the Civil War? Who were they? The overwhelming majority of them were Christian. The overwhelming majority of them were white. White Christian men who fought for the North, for the Union, against slavery during the Civil War in the most horrendous battles this nation ever faced. More casualties by far than World War II. Over 700,000, both sides, of course, all Americans. But isn't it interesting? Critical race theory, Joy Reid, MSNBC, who were these white Christian men and boys who were lined up against the Confederacy? In some battles, they were just mowed down in the most grotesque ways. They didn't own slaves. Some of them never met a black person. There weren't a lot of black people in the North back then. Some, of course. Just not a ton. You had white men and boys coming out of the most northern parts of the country in New England who'd never gone past Philadelphia. In these battles, they would go into the Deep South on many occasions. These men and these boys, almost all of them used to put little notes in their pockets before a battle to their loved one or their loved ones, their family, because they didn't think they'd make it. And if you were badly wounded then, you typically died. Obviously, they didn't have the technology today. And it was horrendous when they cut off limbs. You could hear these men screaming on the battlefield when they were wounded. You could hear them screaming when they were being operated on, and many times the operations killed them. They didn't have anesthesia. They gave them a swig of booze. The stench from the battlefield of the dead bodies and the dead horses and other animals was unbelievable. To go back and bury them or to move those bodies, think about it. Thousands and thousands, every single battle. And Lincoln would not give up until the North won. They told him to sue for peace. Give them their country. Give them part of the South. I can hear the rhinos and the never-Trumpers now, But anyway, he said no. And so you had these men and boys, mostly Christian, mostly white, fighting to end slavery, to keep the Union together. And if the Union had not been kept together, slavery would have continued in the areas, states, and territories where it was being practiced. Because even after the Civil War, Grant had to send the Army, the U.S. Army, into the South to try and obliterate the Klan, which had gotten big and strong from ex-senior officials and then others who had been defeated in the Confederacy. And he would have wiped them out, but for the fact, ready for this, guys? The Democrats took over the House of Representatives in his second term. So they wouldn't support him sending the military back down there. It's always the Democrats, isn't it? So when I hear this stuff about the white society, the white this, how does that explain the Civil War? Oh, I'm sure they have some perverse idea. How does it explain it? And how does it explain Lincoln? Lincoln did more for this country, white or black, but especially the slaves, African Americans, and any human being on the face of the earth, more than any human being on the face of the earth. And you know what happened 2 summers ago? They trashed his statue in one of the cities. They pulled it down. Because before he became president, he had different ideas about what should be done to the slaves if they're freed, maybe sent back to Africa. You see Liberia and Africa and so forth. But that's not where he ended up. Lincoln did more than any other human being on the face of the earth. A president. Why did he do that in a white dominant society? Elected president of the United States. Why did he do that if America is so awful? Why did all those men and boys fight? So many of them perished in horrible ways. You ever go to these battlefields? You ever look at the battlefield pictures where these bodies are lined up and they have to dig these big trenches to bury them so disease doesn't spread and so forth and so on? You ever see that? Of course you have. All that doesn't look like a completely white dominant society that doesn't care about other human beings in the country, does it? No, I don't think so. Joy Reid, this 1619 Project, Michael Eric Dyson, John Capehart, they're not alone, of course. The entire management at MSNBC, CNN, Comcast, and AT&T, most of which are white, they're a disgrace. They don't teach American history. Kwame Brown is exactly right. These people are very wealthy. They don't suffer. They don't live in the communities they claim to represent and care about for the most part. They do very little to help those communities. Maybe they'll send them a few bucks. That's about it. Not much more. And I speak of black and white and everything in between. All right, let's take a look at this. We have coordinated smash and grab burglaries taking place in our cities because Joy Reid doesn't think private property should be protected. All hers, of course. But private property generally shouldn't be protected. And what happens? Businesses leave. They go broke. So where are you going to get groceries? Where are you going to get... You know what this is? This is self-induced redlining. As I sit here and think about it, you're redlining your own community because businesses are not going to go into communities where they're not protected. They don't want their personnel, regardless of race, threatened or harmed. They can't afford to keep stores open in communities that are not going to protect them or not going to respect the rule of law. And why should they? So here you actually have communities that are redlining themselves because how are these communities going to grow? How are the people going to survive in these communities? Look at what the Democrats and their supporters and rioters do. No school choice, so you're stuck in these lousy schools for the most part, criminally infested schools. I can go through one city after another about what's going on because the unions don't want it and the Democrat Party doesn't want it. Competition and freedom, regardless of your race, especially if you're a minority. You're going to attack private businesses? Well, they're going to leave. Not only are they not going to expand and add other businesses, they're going to leave. They're not coming in. There goes your tax base. There goes your convenience for food and medicines and so forth. And then, of course, you're going to undermine the cops. So in Chicago, as I read this on radio and on Hannity the other night, you've got kids, you have the elderly. They're simply walking on the sidewalk and they're being shot randomly and murdered. Not because of a white dominant society, because of a collapse of the culture, a collapse of morality. Because of gangs, turf, private property, if you will, to gangs. Things that have nothing to do with what goes on MSNBC or CNN. And these hosts that claim to be down for the revolution, they're not in the revolution. They're not in the streets. They don't have anything to contribute to anything. Anyway, take a look. Go.
This holiday season, a cloud of fear hanging over the Bay Area after consecutive nights of broken glass and stolen goods haunts some of the area's most posh shopping districts.
Get on the sidewalk!
The spree started Friday night in San Francisco's Union Square. A swarm of vandals and looters.
First of all, Union Square used to be such a beautiful area. Upscale. Am I allowed to say upscale? Successful. Am I allowed to say successful, or does everything have to be rotten? If you are brazenly on Union Square breaking into this Louis Vuitton and these other stores, there's no law and order whatsoever. I mean, they're going to destroy the wealthiest parts of the city that pay the highest amount of taxes that are used for all these other programs. Go ahead.
High-end stores like Louis Vuitton, Fendi, and Hermes. Witnesses posted videos of bag-toting thieves fanning out from caved-in windows. Police flooded in, attempting to pick off perpetrators as they fled. One video shows officers bashing in a car, then making an arrest after dragging a man from the vehicle. In all, 9 stores were hit. Police say at least 8 people arrested so far, with several weapons and thousands of dollars in merchandise recovered.
This was not unplanned. Their plan was to overwhelm us. Their plan was hoping that we wouldn't be here, but we were.
The next night, a massive flash mob surged through this Nordstrom's in nearby Walnut Creek. Law enforcement officials calling the attack well organized.
Now keep in mind, Walnut Creek is sort of a Tony suburb. Used to be Republican, now it's Democrat. Go ahead.
I saw people running down the street. I probably saw 50 to 80 people in like ski masks, crowbars, like a bunch of weapons.
Police closing in as thieves rushed with high-priced goods to waiting getaway cars. Some stopped by officers with guns drawn. On Sunday, Walnut Creek police hinted at more coordination, saying they were actively monitoring intelligence that indicates a group of thieves who stole from the Broadway Plaza Nordstrom last night are considering similar activity later today.
It was sporadic. They had lookouts. There were signals. We've seen it go in spurts, and then we'd make arrests, and then we'd see it die down, and then we'd see it pop back up again.
Later that night, more chaos. This time, a group of about 30 thieves and looters struck at the Southland Mall in Hayward.
We can't continue to allow people to freely flow in and out of this city, commit these acts, and get away with it.
Tonight, shopping districts across the country on high alert after similar incidents broke out, including another smash and grab on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, and this stunning video from a Louis Vuitton in suburban Chicago, showing masked thieves bursting into the store in broad daylight, swiping merchandise and running away.
You see, it's not even just the cities now. It's the suburbs. It's spreading, it's spreading, it's spreading. Go ahead.
Police say at least 14 suspects escaped in 3 separate vehicles. A holiday crime spree, hitting stores at the height of their most important season.
They have been armed, so the idea that anybody should be a hero over a $1,000 high fashion bag doesn't make sense at all.
Now, Joy Reid may understand why property matters. Property rights. The funny thing is the Marxists care about property more than anybody else. What's at the core of what they want? They call it historic materialism. Materialism. They want to take private property out of private hands from individuals who've earned it. And the government wants to centralize control over it and determine who gets what. And that's how you get Venezuela. That's how you get Cuba. That's how you get the genocidal regime in China. That's how you got Stalin. It's just another form of totalitarianism, the worst form of totalitarianism. Property rights matter, unless you're a Marxist, unless you're a racist, like so many of the people on MSNBC and CNN, and so many of the people they bring on to speak, and so many of the people in the Democrat Party in Washington, D.C. Yeah, it's very sad. Nonetheless, there's pushback taking place, thanks to you, from school boards and I hope the rest of the country. You understand what American Marxism is all about. It's about this. And now we're fighting over justice, the rule of law, juries, police officers. We're getting right down to the nub. Right down to the nub. Because you see, in a white supremacist society, we have to destroy everything in order to create this paradise. Paradise. Where the police state has an iron fist, where people are imprisoned, if not worse, and everybody's poor except the people who are in charge. Is that paradise to you? I don't think so. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'll see you next week.